It was supposed to be routine. A black teenager, eyes bright with a kind of hope only the young still believe in, clutching money saved from birthdays and chores, determined to prove she was responsible enough for her own account. But banks have a way of revealing truths no one wants to say out loud. In that shining lobby with its marble floors and polite greetings, the air curdled with suspicion the moment she was seen. Accusations followed without evidence. Apologies were refused before they were even offered. And when the police came, no one was surprised except her. But the real shock wasn't what they did to her. It was who she turned out to be, and the hurricane that came for them after. This isn't just a story about bias. It's about the devastating cost of underestimating someone you thought you could humiliate quietly. Watch closely, because this ending will haunt you. If you want more stories that don't flinch from hard truths, hit like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Let's see who's ready to talk about what really happens behind the counter. Kayla Thompson felt the envelope in her pocket like it weighed 1,000 pounds. $950 wasn't just money. It was her entire savings from over a year of babysitting, tutoring, cleaning yards, and every birthday gift carefully saved. She'd rehearsed this moment for days, standing in front of the mirror, perfecting how she'd greet the banker. She wanted to sound responsible, mature, grown-up. She even pressed her Navy school uniform twice to get every wrinkle out. Today was supposed to prove she was ready for independence. As she walked up the steps of First Meridian Bank, she took a steadying breath. The doors swung open to reveal a lobby of polished marble floors, elegant chairs, and hushed conversations that felt strangely heavy. She tried to hold her head high, despite the knot in her stomach. She was ready. She knew she was ready. She spotted the counter where a plaque read Linda Parker Branch Manager and headed over, carefully balancing her folder of documents and the envelope of cash. Linda looked up slowly, her gaze sliding over Kayla's uniform and backpack like she was scanning for dirt. Kayla swallowed but smiled brightly. "Good afternoon. I'd like to open my first checking account, please. I have all my documents here." Linda's lips barely twitched. "Do you have an appointment?" Kayla shook her head politely. "I read online that you take walk-ins for new youth accounts." Linda's eyes narrowed slightly. "We do, usually." She tilted her head toward the envelope. "How much is that?" Kayla tried to keep her voice calm. $950. Linda's brows lifted, mouth twitching in faint contempt. $950. That's a lot of cash for someone your age. Where'd you get it? Kayla felt her face flush hot. She didn't like how Linda was talking to her, like she was a criminal. It's birthday money, and savings from doing jobs. I babysit, tutor, and help my neighbors. Linda sniffed. "Do you have receipts for these jobs?" Kayla's heart sank. No. They just paid me. But I can show you my statements from my credit union. I withdrew this today." She opened her folder, the papers neatly stacked, and tried to hand them over. Linda didn't reach for them. She leaned back in her chair, folding her arms. "It's just highly unusual. A minor with that much cash." Kayla tried to stay calm. She wasn't going to cry. She'd promised herself she wouldn't. "I have my school ID, my birth certificate, and a note from my mom giving me permission since I'm under 18. She held them up like an offering. Linda didn't move. "Sure," she said flatly. "A note. Anyone can write one." Kayla's heart thundered. She didn't know what to say. She'd done everything right. She'd followed the rules. She'd come in prepared. And she was being treated like she didn't belong here at all. "I'm sorry," she said, voice shaking just a little. "But this is my money. I've been saving it for over a year." Linda gave her a long, cold stare. Then she picked up her phone and turned her back, speaking in a hushed voice, throwing in words like suspicious, unusual, and verify. She would politely ask to speak to someone else if Linda refused again. She would prove, without a doubt, that she had earned this money honestly and that she was responsible enough to have her own checking account. The thought made her stand a little straighter, even as her stomach twisted. She watched the clock tick on the wall, behind the counter, the silence heavy around her. The door to the back office finally opened, and Linda emerged with another bank employee in tow. This woman was younger, with dark hair pulled into a tight bun and a name tag that read Assistant Manager, Julia Chun. Julia's expression was polite but tight, her eyes flicking between Kayla and Linda as if she already knew what had been said. Linda's voice dripped with false sweetness as she gestured toward Kayla with a tilt of her head. "This is the young lady I told you about," she said, making no attempt to hide the disdain in her tone. "She claims she wants to open an account with nearly $1,000 in cash." Julia's brows drew together, but before she could respond, Kayla found her voice, shaking but determined. "I don't claim. I do want to open an account. I have all the documents you need. I've been saving this money for over a year." She tried to hand Julia the folder, but Linda stepped forward, blocking it with her hand like Kayla was offering contraband. "You see what I mean?" Linda said to Julia, her tone condescending, as if Kayla wasn't even standing there. "She's obviously making up stories. I asked her for receipts for all this supposed work she's done, and she has nothing." Kayla's mouth fell open. "That's not fair," she protested, her voice cracking with anger. "People don't give receipts for babysitting or tutoring their kids. But I have my savings account statements. You can see the withdrawals. It's real. It's my money." Linda didn't even look at her. She spoke over her, her voice rising a little to ensure everyone in the bank could hear. "Look, Julia, it's highly suspicious. We don't see minors coming in with that kind of cash unless it's for something shady. Drugs, theft. Who knows where she got it? I'm not about to open an account and become an accessory to laundering." Julia looked uncomfortable, glancing at Kayla, but she didn't argue with Linda. Kayla's eyes filled with tears, she desperately blinked away. She'd heard people say it's not about race, but in this moment it was so clear that's exactly what it was. She thought about the other customers she'd seen come in, older white kids in private school blazers who'd been waved straight through. She couldn't imagine anyone demanding they prove how they earned their birthday money. The difference sat in her skin, the braids carefully tied back for neatness, the uniform she tried so hard to keep clean and pressed. It didn't matter. She saw the way Linda's eyes kept darting to her hair, her clothes, her skin, making calculations. Kayla tried again, her voice cracking, no longer able to keep the hurt out of it. "Please, I just want to open a bank account. That's it. That's all I want." Linda crossed her arms, smirking slightly. "That's not all you want. You want to scam us. You want to pass off stolen money and make us responsible for it. I've been doing this for over 20 years, little girl. I know the signs, and you're showing all of them." Julia's mouth pressed into a thin line, but still she didn't say anything. Kayla's heart sank. Even the other employee wouldn't help her. Kayla felt every eye in the room on her. An old man nearby shook his head disapprovingly, muttering something under his breath that she couldn't hear but felt all the same. A woman with a toddler in tow scooted a step away, eyes wide as if Kayla might be dangerous. The sense of shame flooded her, thick and choking. She thought of her mom. She'd been so proud of Kayla for wanting to do this herself. She'd given her a hug that morning, said, "I'm so proud of you for taking responsibility." She thought of her grandmother, handing over those crisp 20s with that proud glint in her eye, saying, "This is your seed money. Make it grow." And here she was being called a criminal for trying. Linda's voice dropped to something more sinister. "Honestly, you're lucky we haven't already called the police. This amount of cash in the hands of a child? That's a red flag. I'm required to report suspicious activity. If you don't leave right now, I will have no choice." Kayla felt like she'd been punched. Police? No one asked Linda to stop. No one defended her. She realized with a sick drop in her stomach that they all believed Linda, not her. Linda turned slightly away, speaking into the phone. "Yes, this is Linda Parker, branch manager at First Meridian Bank. I need officers here immediately. I have a minor attempting to deposit suspicious funds. Yes, large amount of cash, no valid explanation, refusing to leave." Her voice was calm, businesslike, even satisfied. Kayla felt like she'd been slapped. She wanted to scream that it wasn't true, that she had explained, that she'd shown her ID, her permission slip, her savings account statements. that she was just a kid trying to open a bank account. But the words caught in her throat like she was drowning. Julia Chun, the assistant manager, was still standing nearby, watching this unfold with visible discomfort. She opened her mouth as if to say something, but Linda shot her a look that made her snap her mouth shut. Kayla turned to Julia in desperation. "Please," she whispered, voice hoarse. "Don't let her do this. I'm not stealing. I swear. Please just call my mom. She'll explain." Julia's eyes flickered with pity, but then dropped to the floor. She didn't move. Kayla realized with a gut-twisting certainty that Julia wasn't going to help her. No one was. Linda hung up the phone with a satisfied click and turned back to Kayla. "Officers are on their way," she said, her voice dripping condescension. "I suggest you stay right there and don't cause any more trouble." Kayla felt her legs weaken. Her knees threatened to buckle. She grabbed the counter to steady herself. She was crying openly now, sobs forcing their way out of her throat despite everything she tried to hold in. "Please," she begged, voice cracking. "Please don't do this. I didn't steal anything. I'm not a thief." Linda's mouth twisted into a cruel smirk. "You know, the tears might work on someone else, but not me. I've seen this before. Crocodile tears when they realize they're caught." Kayla shook her head violently, her braids whipping around her face. "No, I'm not caught because I didn't do anything. I just want to open an account. That's all I want." Linda snorted. "You want to open an account to launder stolen money? I'm not stupid." Kayla flinched like she'd been hit. The words were so sharp, so hateful, so sure of her guilt. Her chest felt tight, like she couldn't breathe. She turned and saw the security guard at the front door, watching now, hand on his belt. He wasn't coming to help her. He was just waiting for her to run, to give him an excuse. The realization made her knees shake harder. She turned back to Linda. Please just let me call my mom. I'll show you the texts. I'll show you anything you want. She's at work, but she'll answer. She banks here too. She's been here before. She'll explain everything." Linda's eyes narrowed, glittering with open contempt. "Sure. Your mom, who probably taught you this scam. I'm not letting you tip off your partners. That's exactly what they want. Use a kid so it looks innocent." Kayla's mouth opened in horror. "No," she shouted, voice cracking. "That's not true. I'm not scamming anyone. It's my money. I saved it. I earned it." Linda didn't even blink. "Enough," she said coldly. "Save it for the officers. Maybe they'll believe your little sob story. I doubt it." Kayla felt like the world was tilting. She realized she was going to be arrested for trying to deposit her own money. She felt hot shame crawl over her skin. The bank was so quiet except for the muffled sounds of people whispering. She knew they were all watching, judging, believing Linda. She tried to steady her breathing, but it came out in ragged gasps. She tried to think. She had to do something. She couldn't just stand there and let them arrest her. She couldn't. Slowly, with shaking hands, she pulled her phone from her pocket. Linda noticed immediately. "Put that down," she snapped. Kayla ignored her. She scrolled desperately to her mom's contact, fingers trembling so hard she could barely hit the letters. She typed in a rush, tears splattering on the screen. "Mom, please help me. At bank. They're calling police. Say I stole money. Please come. I'm scared." The entire lobby fell silent. Conversations died mid-sentence. Everyone turned to watch. The uniformed officers advanced with measured, deliberate steps, their eyes locking on Kayla immediately. She felt like prey. Officer Bradley Walsh, the older of the two with a blocky build and lined face, took the lead. His partner, Officer Maria Santos, younger and more slender but equally grave, followed just behind. Walsh's gaze swept over the scene, taking in Kayla's shaking frame, the scattered documents, the envelope of cash Linda had pushed aside on the counter like contraband. Linda wasted no time. She launched into her story, her voice ringing through the quiet lobby. "Officers, thank you for coming. This young lady came in here attempting to deposit what I believe to be stolen money. She's been uncooperative, evasive, and aggressive. She refused to leave when asked." Kayla's mouth dropped open. "That's not true," she choked out, her voice breaking. "I just wanted to open an account. It's my money. Please let me explain." Walsh didn't even look at her. He turned to Linda, nodding grimly. "Understood. About how much cash are we talking?" Linda's lips twitched in satisfaction. $950. All in 20s and 50s. She claims it's from birthdays and odd jobs, but she has no receipts, no proof. It's obviously suspicious. I didn't want to take part in laundering. Kayla felt the room tilt. She stumbled forward a step, clutching her folder. Please just look at my papers. My ID is in here. My school note. My credit union statements. I've been saving for over a year." Santos finally glanced at her, her mouth tightening with what might have been discomfort. But Walsh didn't even blink. "Ma'am, we'll handle this." He turned fully to Kayla, his hand resting on the handcuffs at his belt. "Young lady, I need you to calm down and step away from the counter." Kayla's head spun. She felt like she was falling. "Calm down? I'm not even pleased. Just call my mom. She banks here too. She'll explain everything." Walsh's jaw tightened. "We don't need to call anyone right now. Step away from the counter." Kayla's voice rose to a panicked wail. "Please, don't do this. I didn't steal anything. It's my money. I worked for it." Linda made a disgusted sound. There she goes again. She's been dramatic, like this the entire time. Trying to make a scene, so we'll back down. Julia's face crumpled, but she didn't say a word. The other customers watched in rigid silence, eyes wide, some clutching their purses or shuffling their children behind them. No one moved to intervene. No one spoke up. Walsh gave Kayla one more flat look before reaching for his handcuffs. "That's enough. Turn around and put your hands behind your back." The words punched the breath out of her. She froze, shaking so badly her teeth chattered. "No," she whispered, tears pouring down her face. "Please. I didn't do anything. I just wanted an account. Please don't arrest me." Walsh's face darkened. He grabbed her arm roughly. "You were given a lawful order. Now turn around before you make this worse for yourself." Kayla sobbed out a strangled noise, too choked to even speak. She tried to twist away, but her knees buckled, sending her crashing to the floor. Her documents scattered like confetti, her school ID sliding under the counter, her permission slip curling at the edges where it landed in a dirty footprint. Santos lunged forward, grabbing her other arm. "Stop resisting," she barked. Kayla screamed as they forced her arms behind her back, the cold metal biting into her wrists. Please don't. Call my mom. Call her. I'm begging you." But neither officer looked at her face. Neither paused. The cuffs snapped shut with an audible metallic click that seemed to echo through the entire bank. The entire lobby watched in horror. An elderly woman near the line gasped and whispered, "This is wrong." But she didn't move. No one moved. They all just watched. Linda smirked behind the counter, her arms folded. "Thank you, officers. I appreciate your quick response." Walsh nodded curtly. "We'll take it from here." They hauled Kayla to her feet, but her legs gave out, so they dragged her half stumbling, half sobbing toward the door. Her face was blotchy and wet with tears, her breath coming in strangled gulps. She tried to find Julia in the crowd, eyes pleading. Julia's face was pale as chalk. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. She looked away. They reached the glass doors. Kayla's backpack fell from her shoulder and landed with a thud, the zipper bursting open to spill her pencils, her school planner, the bank's youth account brochure she'd printed at home. Santos kicked it aside without a glance. Outside the bank, the late afternoon sun was blindingly bright. The world felt too big and too loud. People on the sidewalk stopped to stare. Some took out their phones, recording the scene as the officers dragged the handcuffed 14-year-old out of the prestigious First Meridian Bank like a common criminal. Kayla sobbed, her voice ragged and hoarse. "Please, I didn't do anything. It's my money. It's mine." Walsh didn't respond. He just kept walking. Santos murmured something about procedure into her radio, ignoring Kayla's desperate cries. They stopped at the squad car, opening the back door. Kayla tried to plant her feet, but her sneakers slipped on the concrete. She felt the hot metal of the car door press into her side. "Please," she whispered one last time, the words barely audible, shredded by sobs. "Please don't do this." She had built her reputation over years of grueling, thankless work, clawing her way up in an industry dominated by men who tried to patronize her, then feared her, then finally respected her. Her dark hair was pulled back into a severe knot. Her tailored suit was understated, but impossibly expensive, and she wielded her laser-sharp focus like a weapon. For most people in the financial world, she was Dr. Reyes, the CEO of Reyes Thompson Financial Group, a powerhouse managing billions. But to one person in the world, she was just Mom. She kept that role carefully walled off, protected private, because she remembered how easily it could be destroyed. So when her phone buzzed silently on the polished table, she barely glanced at it at first. It was in Do Not Disturb mode, programmed to let only certain numbers through. Her assistant, emergencies only. Her security chief. And Kayla. Her heart skipped when she saw her daughter's name flashing on the screen. Monica's hand closed around the phone, the motion sudden enough to make the room pause. She lowered her gaze to read the message. "Mom, please help me. At bank. They're calling police. Say I stole money. Please come. I am scared." Monica didn't move for a beat, didn't even blink. Then the words registered all at once like a punch to the solar plexus. Her vision tunneled, sound drained away, and her fingers tightened until her knuckles went white. The boardroom fell dead silent. One of the VPs cleared his throat, nervous. "Dr. Reyes, is everything all right?" Monica didn't answer immediately. She swallowed, forcing down the red-hot tide of panic, threatening to overwhelm her. The primal scream of a mother knowing her child was in danger. Her mind raced, connecting dots in microseconds. First Meridian Bank. Kayla's plan to go there alone after school. The speech they'd had that morning about responsibility. About how proud Monica was of her for wanting to do it herself. And now this. Police. Stolen money. Kayla scared. Alone. The fury that erupted in Monica's chest was cold and precise. Not a wild blaze, but an icy, consuming force. She stood abruptly, her chair rolling back into the wall with a harsh scrape that made everyone in the room flinch. "This meeting is over," she said, her voice flat and low, which was somehow more terrifying than if she had shouted. Her executives looked at each other, eyes wide. The junior VP, who had dared speak, coughed again. "Dr. Reyes, can we?" She cut him off with a look. "Leave." They obeyed immediately. Papers rustled. Chairs squeaked. Shoes scuffed the floor. No one spoke. No one dared. Monica didn't wait for them to clear the room entirely. She was already turning away, phone clenched in her fist, her other hand diving into the pocket of her blazer for her car keys. She hit a speed dial number without even looking. "David," she snapped as soon as her corporate attorney answered. "My daughter is being arrested at First Meridian Bank. I want you en route immediately. No, do not ask questions. I want you there before me if possible. Do you understand?" He tried to stammer a reply. She hung up before he finished. She hit another number. "Robert," she barked when her security chief picked up. "We have an emergency. My daughter is at First Meridian Bank downtown. She's being arrested. I want eyes on her, now. I want her safe. I want any video from inside that building secured immediately. And Robert, bring the team. Full detail." His "yes, ma'am" was sharp, no questions. She hung up, fingers shaking so hard she had to clench them into a fist to still them. She took a single deep breath, trying to steady herself. It didn't help. She felt the rage boiling under her skin, the disbelief, the bone-deep terror that her little girl, her baby, was alone, scared, being treated like a criminal. Monica turned and strode from the conference room, her heels clicking like gunshots on the marble floors. Her executive assistant tried to intercept her in the hall, babbling about her next meeting. Monica cut her off with a look so venomous it silenced the woman mid-sentence. "Cancel everything," Monica said, voice dangerously quiet. "I don't care what it is. The assistant nodded, scrambling to obey. Monica didn't slow down. She burst through the polished glass doors of her office suite and stalked toward the private elevator. Her mind was already whirring at 1,000 miles per hour. She imagined Kayla's face, wide, tearful eyes, bottom lip trembling the way it did when she was trying so hard to be brave. She imagined her daughter's voice cracking with terror as she tried to explain herself to strangers who didn't care. She imagined the police putting their hands on her, shoving her into the back of a squad car like she was garbage. Monica's stomach twisted so violently she almost gagged. She punched the button for the parking garage so hard the plastic cracked. The elevator doors shut, sealing her inside the small mirrored space. For a moment, she let the mask slip. Her reflection showed a woman carved from rage and fear. She swallowed hard. She couldn't lose it. Not yet. Kayla needed her. The elevator chimed. The doors opening onto the private garage. Her driver, James, was already waiting, standing beside the idling black sedan. He straightened when he saw her face. None. She didn't break stride. First Meridian Bank. Now, drive like the devil is behind you. He didn't hesitate. He yanked open the rear door. Monica slid in, already tapping furiously at her phone. She sent messages to board members she knew had influence with local law enforcement. She called the bank's corporate office, demanding to speak to someone, anyone, who could stop what was happening. Her school uniform was rumpled. The folder of documents she'd so carefully prepared was scattered on the pavement, pages fluttering with every breeze from passing cars. Monica's breath hissed out between her teeth like steam from a ruptured pipe. Her security chief, Robert Torres, fell into step just behind her, massive, broad-shouldered ex-police, his expression grim and watchful. The rest of the security detail fanned out, forming a loose wall between the onlookers and the unfolding scene. Monica didn't speak as she crossed the distance between her car and the front of the bank. She didn't have to. Her mere presence parted the small crowd like a blade through water. Even the police officers noticed. Their conversation with Kayla faltered. Officer Walsh turned to look at Monica, eyes narrowing in defensive suspicion, hand shifting on his belt. Officer Santos straightened, trying to look authoritative. Kayla's head jerked up at the movement, and for one gut-wrenching moment, their eyes met. Monica's throat closed at the sight of her daughter's face. Red and wet with tears, eyes wide with a terror no child should ever know. For a split second, the steely mask cracked, and she had to physically swallow the scream that rose in her chest. Then it was gone, sealed under decades of practice control. She stepped right up to the police officers without slowing, her voice a low, icy blade. "Take those off. Now." Walsh blinked. "Ma'am, you'll need to calm down. Do not speak to me." Monica cut him off, voice flat and lethal. "Remove those handcuffs from my daughter right now." "Ma'am, this young lady is under investigation for suspicion of theft," Walsh said stiffly, eyes narrowing as he straightened to his full height. Monica didn't even glance at him. She never took her eyes off Kayla, whose chest was heaving, breath coming in choked sobs as she tried to speak. "Mom," Kayla sobbed. Monica lifted one hand, palm out, not as a command to Kayla, but as a shield. "It's okay. I'm here." Her eyes flicked back to Walsh like a viper's strike. "Last chance, officer. Take them off." Walsh's mouth tightened. He actually had the nerve to rest a hand on his taser. "Step back, ma'am. You're interfering." Robert Torres moved in, looming over him. "I wouldn't," he growled softly. His badge, still valid, gleamed from his belt. Santos hesitated, her eyes darting from Monica to Robert to Kayla. For one moment, the entire street seemed to hold its breath. Then Santos, swallowing, reached for the key on her belt and turned to Kayla. Her hands were shaking as she slotted the key into the cuffs. The metal clicked. Kayla nearly collapsed forward, wrists red and bruised. Monica caught her before she fell, wrapping her arms around her child so tightly Kayla whimpered, then buried her face in Monica's chest and let out a wailing sob. Monica's jaw clenched so hard it ached. She pressed her lips to the top of Kayla's head, breathing in the scent of her hair, hot with sweat and tears. "It's okay. I've got you. I'm here." But her eyes stayed locked on Walsh, burning. "You're done," she said softly, with venom so controlled it made Santos flinch. "You are finished." Walsh blustered. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to calm down." Monica didn't even blink. She tilted her head slightly. Robert was already pulling out his phone, hitting speed dial. A voice answered immediately. "Chief Morales? This is Robert Torres. I'm with Dr. Reyes. We have a problem." Monica kept her voice quiet, deadly. "I want your badge on my desk by tomorrow morning." Walsh's mouth opened. "Shut." He looked to Santos for help, but she was busy trying not to throw up. Kayla hiccuped and sobbed in Monica's arms, fingers clutching the fine wool of her mother's blazer in white-knuckled fists. Monica didn't loosen her hold. She kept one arm around Kayla, the other gesturing imperiously at the security detail, who immediately moved to surround them in a protective wall. She turned without another word and started guiding Kayla toward the bank entrance. Walsh tried to follow. Robert simply stepped into his path. "Not advisable," he said flatly. Inside the bank, the silence was worse than outside. Monica didn't look at Julia with rage or scorn. Instead, she dismissed her with a flick of a hand, focusing on Linda like a hawk sighting prey. "Tell me, Miss Parker," Monica said finally, voice deceptively calm, every word deliberate. "At what point did you decide my daughter was a criminal?" Linda swallowed hard, voice cracking. She had so much cash. It was unusual. "Unusual," Monica repeated, the word dripping ice. $950. The equivalent of what my colleagues in that conference room I left would spend on dinner and a bottle of wine without blinking. Unusual for a child who earns it honestly. But only for her, correct? Only for a black girl. Linda's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping on the deck. I never said that." "That's not your exact words," Monica continued, cutting her off with quiet, lethal precision. "Were that you've seen their kind try these scams before. Correct? I'm sure the cameras will confirm it, unless you'd like to confess it now and save everyone time." Linda shook her head frantically. "I didn't mean, that's not what Monica raised one eyebrow. "Not what you meant, or not what you said." The room was so quiet that the rustle of Kayla shifting in her mother's hold was like thunder. Kayla's face was blotchy and swollen, but she was watching now, silent, tears still slowly drying on her cheeks. Linda's lip trembled. She tried again to speak, but her voice broke. Monica let the silence stretch, deliberately humiliating her, making her squirm under the weight of her gaze. She wasn't shouting. She didn't need to. Every person in that lobby understood exactly who held power here. Monica's eyes finally flicked to David. "What did you find?" David didn't look up from his tablet. His tone was businesslike, detached, and utterly damning. "Security footage confirms Linda Parker refused to examine Kayla's ID, school note, or banking statements. It also shows multiple incidents over the past 6 months in which Ms. Parker demanded extra documentation from Black and Latino customers while waving white customers through with a smile. We've pulled customer complaint records as well. There's a pattern." He scrolled for emphasis. "We're compiling it all now. Should be ready for the board of directors within the hour." Linda made a sound halfway between a gasp and a sob. Monica's lip curled. There it is." She turned back to Linda with the finality of a judge pronouncing sentence. "You've embarrassed this institution. You've endangered a child. You've exposed it to lawsuits that will cost it more than you can imagine. And worst of all," her voice dropped to a soft, almost pitying tone that somehow cut deeper than anything else, "you taught my daughter, who has never in her life been treated as less than, exactly how the world will see her. You made sure she will never forget it. That is what I will never forgive." Linda burst into tears, actual wrenching sobs that made the entire lobby squirm with secondhand embarrassment. But no one moved to comfort her. Not a single coworker or bystander offered a word in her defense. Julia stood stock still, mouth pressed in a thin line, refusing to look at her former boss. Monica didn't even blink. She waited until Linda had dissolved into shaking, gulping breaths before she spoke again. "David," she said calmly, "make sure this recording goes to the bank's board, and the HR department, and the press if necessary." David nodded without hesitation. "Already done. Copies on secured cloud servers. Can't be buried or deleted." Monica smiled, then a cold, sharp thing without an ounce of warmth. "Excellent." She turned to Kayla, crouching so she was eye level. She cupped her daughter's cheek gently, wiping away a drying tear with her thumb. "This is what power is for," she said quietly, voice cracking just the tiniest bit. "Not for making people afraid, but for making sure they can't ever hurt you again." Kayla's lip trembled and fresh tears welled. She lunged forward, wrapping her arms around Monica's neck in a desperate, childlike hug. Monica held her tight, resting her cheek on the crown of Kayla's head. For the first time since she'd walked into the bank, Monica's eyes closed. But her eyes were hard as flint as she stared out the window, her mind already racing through the fallout of what had happened. She wasn't done, not by a long shot. Across from them, Robert Torres sat stiffly, scanning the passing streets with the alertness of a bodyguard on duty, but casting the occasional worried glance at Kayla. He'd been with the family for over a decade, had watched Kayla grow from a babbling toddler to this bright, earnest, determined young woman who now looked so small and broken. Monica caught his eye in the mirror. The slight shake of his head told her he was furious too. She squeezed Kayla tighter. The car pulled to a stop in front of their townhouse in the historic district, elegant but understated. Brick walls covered in ivy. James got out to open the door, but Monica didn't move for a moment. She kissed Kayla's forehead. "We're home, sweetheart," she whispered. Kayla sniffled again, nodding miserably, but didn't resist when Monica gently urged her out. She kept hold of her daughter's hand as they walked up the stone path to the door, Robert following a respectful distance behind. Inside, the house was silent and warm, familiar. Monica guided Kayla to the living room couch and sat with her, refusing to let go of her hand. She waited until Kayla's breathing evened out, until the panic drained from her eyes, and she was just a girl again, just her daughter. Then Monica did the hardest thing she'd had to do all day. She let go. She stood, smoothed her suit, and turned to Robert. "I want a full report on the incident," she said quietly but firmly. "Every second of security footage from the bank, every recording of the police call, every bystander video online. I want it all compiled. We will not let them spin this." Robert nodded, his own expression thunderous. "Already in progress. The team is pulling social media clips now. I've also spoken with the department's internal affairs. They are concerned." Monica's eyes narrowed. "Good. Let them be concerned. Let them stay up all night worrying about how to fix this." She didn't wait for an answer. She turned and strode down the hall to her office, the door clicking shut behind her with the same finality as a judge's gavel. The walls were lined with framed degrees, industry awards, photos of her and Kayla at graduations and charity events. But Monica didn't look at any of them. She sat behind her desk, the polished surface cold under her palms, and let herself breathe for a single, solitary second. Then she picked up her phone and began making calls. The first was to David Shun. "I want the bank's board of directors in a meeting tomorrow. I want an apology on record. Not just to me, to my daughter. And I want heads to roll. If they think they can just fire Linda Parker and be done with it, they are wrong." David was silent for a moment before replying. "Understood. I'll start drafting the letters. And the press release. Make it clear," Monica continued, voice low and hard, "that if they do not comply, I will take this national. I'll have every civil rights attorney in the country salivating to sue them. I'll see their name on every news channel for weeks. And I will win." She hung up without waiting for a reply. The next call was to the police commissioner. She didn't bother with pleasantries. She described in excruciating detail what the officers had done, arresting a crying child without investigation, ignoring her documents, handcuffing her like a hardened criminal while Linda Parker gloated. The commissioner tried to apologize, to mollify her. Monica cut him off coldly. "I don't want apologies. I want reform. I want those officers investigated for misconduct. I want their body cam footage reviewed. And I want to know what you plan to do to make sure no child ever goes through this again in this city. Because if you don't fix it, I will. I'll put this department on trial in the court of public opinion." She left him stammering and hung up. Then she sat back, breath trembling in her chest, feeling the adrenaline ebb into cold determination. Across the city, emails flew. Phones rang. Meetings were hastily scheduled. The wheels of institutional damage control began to grind. The next morning, First Meridian Bank's boardroom was packed. David Chun sat at Monica's left, tablet open, while Monica herself sat at the head of the long table, fingers steepled, face utterly calm. Across from her, the bank's chairman looked pale and sweaty, flipping through the dossier David had handed him. Screen grabs from security cameras, transcripts of Linda's call to the police, customer complaints that had quietly been buried over the years. Monica didn't raise her voice once. She didn't have to. Every word was measured, every demand clear. "You are going to issue a public apology to my daughter by the end of today," she said evenly. "You will announce a full investigation into your staff's conduct, not just yesterday, but for the past 5 years. You will overhaul your bias training programs, and you will fund community initiatives that support financial literacy for marginalized youth, or I will destroy you in the press." The chairman licked his lips, but Kayla wasn't sure she believed it. Not really. She looked around her room, the posters of her favorite musicians on the walls, the framed awards from spelling bees and science fairs, the stuffed animals arranged neatly on the shelf, things that had always made her feel proud, comfortable, like she belonged here, like she was good. But tonight they looked like a lie. She saw her reflection in the mirror across from her bed, the dark skin that Linda Parker had seen as criminal, the braids she'd spent hours perfecting that morning now messy and frayed, her eyes red and puffy from crying. She remembered the way the cuffs had dug into her wrists, the cold metal biting, the click as they locked shut. She rubbed at the fading red marks with trembling fingers. She didn't know if they would ever go away in her mind. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She jumped, her heart leaping into her throat before she realized it was just a text from her best friend Mia. "I saw the news. Are you okay?" Kayla's fingers hovered over the screen. She didn't know how to answer. How do you tell someone that you went into a bank to open an account and walked out in handcuffs? That you were called a liar, a thief, a criminal, and that no one had believed you, not even the police who were supposed to protect you? She deleted the half-typed reply and set the phone down, covering her face with her hands. She rocked slightly, trying to hold herself together. Downstairs, she could hear her mom on the phone, voice low but hard as steel as she talked to lawyers, reporters, allies, laying the groundwork for lawsuits, for reforms, for apologies. Monica Reyes Thompson was at her most powerful. Using every ounce of influence, she had to ensure this never happened to anyone else. Kayla knew her mother was doing it for her. But Kayla didn't feel powerful. She felt broken. A knock came at the door. Kayla didn't answer. The door opened anyway, and Monica stepped in, silhouetted by the light from the hallway. She looked tired, lines carved deep around her eyes, her hair pulled back into a practical bun that had started to come undone. She held something in her hand, Kayla's bank folder, the papers slightly wrinkled but carefully gathered and straightened. She walked over and sat next to Kayla on the bed, silent for a moment. Then she placed the folder gently in Kayla's lap. Kayla stared at it. "You forgot this," Monica said quietly. Kayla didn't answer. Monica sighed and put an arm around her shoulders. Kayla stiffened at first but then slumped against her, burying her face in her mother's shoulder. Monica held her tightly, one hand rubbing her back in slow circles. They sat like that for a long time until Kayla's tears slowed. Monica finally spoke, her voice low and steady. "You know, when I was your age, I thought money would make me safe." Kayla didn't move. Monica kept talking. "My parents worked their whole lives to make sure we never went without. I had nice clothes, good schools, everything they didn't have. And they thought that would protect me. But it didn't. I still got followed in stores. I still got pulled over for nothing. I still had to work twice as hard to be taken seriously." She swallowed. And I thought maybe if I built something big enough, if I was important enough, no one would dare treat my daughter the way they treated me. Kayla finally lifted her head, eyes wet and accusing. You said people would treat me fairly if I was polite, if I did everything right. Monica flinched like she'd been slapped. I know, she whispered. I wanted to believe it. I wanted you to believe it. Because the alternative is so ugly. Kayla's lip trembled. I did everything right. And they still thought I was a criminal. Monica's face twisted with pain. She cupped Kayla's cheek. That's not on you. Do you hear me? That's not your fault. That's theirs. That's on them. Kayla shook her head violently. But it happened. And everyone just watched. No one helped me. Her voice broke. No one even cared. Monica's voice cracked. I care. I will always care. I will burn this city to the ground before I let them hurt you again. Kayla didn't reply. She looked down at the folder in her lap. Her permission slip was still there. Her ID, her savings account statement, all the proof she'd had that no one had cared to look at. Slowly, she closed the folder. Monica watched her, swallowing hard. I can fix it, she whispered. I'll make them pay. I'll make sure it never happens to you again. Kayla shook her head. Not just me. Monica blinked. Kayla's fingers tightened on the folder. Her voice was quiet but firm. Not just me. No one. I don't want you to just fight for me. I want to fight too. Monica's breath caught. She looked at her daughter, really looked at her, saw the raw pain and the simmering anger under it. But she also saw the spark, the steel, the determination that had always been there but had never been forced to grow so quickly. She felt tears prick her eyes. Okay, she said hoarsely. Then we fight together. Kayla nodded, lips trembling. Together. Monica pulled her close again, kissing the top of her head. She rested her cheek against Kayla's hair, breathing in the scent, feeling her daughter's heartbeat slow against her own. She thought of all the meetings tomorrow, the calls she'd make, the battles she'd fight. But for now, she just held her. Outside the window, the city lights twinkled. Somewhere out, there were people who would never understand what had happened. People who would dismiss it or justify it or ignore it. But there were also people who were listening, who were learning, who were angry enough to change it. Monica intended to find every single one of them. She would show Kayla what it meant to use power, not just to protect yourself, but to build something better. The morning light filtered through Kayla Thompson's window in pale ribbons, dust motes dancing in the calm, quiet air. She lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, her heart a bruised thing in her chest, but beating steadily. The night had been long. She'd cried until her face hurt. She'd had nightmares of handcuffs snapping shut, of Linda's cold eyes, of police officers ignoring her sobs. But she'd also dreamed of her mother's arms around her, of the words they'd shared in the dark. Not just me. No one. The words echoed in her mind like a promise she had made to herself. She sat up slowly, pressing her palms into the mattress, grounding herself. The room was hers, familiar and safe, but it no longer felt like a child's refuge. It felt like a space she'd outgrown overnight. Her gaze landed on the folder on her desk, the folder that had been at the center of it all. She got up and walked over, fingers running over the creased edges. Her permission slip, ID, bank statements, proof that hadn't meant anything when it mattered most. Proof that she had done everything right and it still hadn't saved her. Kayla closed her eyes and let the anger burn for a moment. Let it fill her chest until she could barely breathe. Then she let it go slowly, replaced by something else. Determination. She picked up the folder, tucking it under her arm, and went downstairs. The house smelled like coffee and toast. She found her mother in the kitchen, standing at the island, phone pressed to her ear as she issued orders in a voice so cold and calm it could have frozen the ocean. Monica caught sight of Kayla and immediately ended the call. She set the phone down carefully, as if it were something fragile. Their eyes met. Neither spoke for a long moment. Kayla felt something twist in her chest. She saw the exhaustion in her mother's eyes, the tension in her shoulders, the grief hidden behind that iron-hard jaw. For the first time, she realized her mother hadn't slept either. Kayla crossed the room and leaned against her, folding her arms around Monica's waist. Her mother's arms closed around her so tightly it was hard to breathe, but Kayla didn't complain. She needed it. Monica's voice was low and rough in her ear. "I'm so sorry." Kayla shook her head against her shoulder. "Don't be. It's not your fault." Monica let out a harsh, broken laugh. "I spent your whole life trying to keep this away from you. I thought if you were smart enough, polite enough, prepared enough, they wouldn't see you like that." Kayla pulled back, her face serious, her voice steady in a way it hadn't been yesterday. "You were wrong." Monica winced like she'd been slapped. Kayla didn't soften it. She couldn't. "You were wrong," she repeated, voice cracking. "But so was I. I thought if I just did everything right, they'd see me as me, not what they wanted to see." Monica's hands trembled where they rested on Kayla's arms. "I know." Kayla took a deep breath. "So now we know, and we can't pretend anymore. We have to fight it." Monica's eyes shone with tears she refused to let fall. She nodded once, sharp and decisive. "Yes, we do." Kayla lifted the folder between them. "I still want to open this account." Monica's mouth opened to protest. Kayla cut her off. "Not because I need them to accept me. Because it's my right. Because I won't let them take that away from me." Monica swallowed. She reached out and smoothed Kayla's hair back from her face. "Then we'll go. Together." Kayla nodded, relief and fear swirling in her chest. She wasn't ready. She didn't think she'd ever be ready. But she was willing. That had to be enough. They spent the morning in quiet preparation. Monica fielded calls from reporters and lawyers and bank executives, falling over themselves to apologize. She listened to them all, but offered no comfort, no absolution. She didn't want their shame. She wanted their change. She demanded public commitments, bias training, new policies for handling youth accounts, community outreach. When she ended each call, her voice was unyielding. "This isn't about fixing what you did to my daughter. It's about fixing it so you don't do it to anyone's." Kayla listened from a dining table, filling out the bank forms she hadn't gotten to finish yesterday. Her hand shook sometimes, but she forced herself to keep writing. When she was done, she closed the folder and set it in front of her. She wasn't going to let it beat her. Around noon, they left the house together. Monica wore a tailored navy suit, every hair in place, her heels clicking like a metronome of judgment on the pavement. Kayla wore her school uniform again. She'd wanted to change, to scrub the memory from it, but in the end she chose to wear it deliberately. A statement. "This is who I am. This is what you saw. And I'm not ashamed." The car ride was quiet, but not tense. Monica held Kayla's hand the entire way. When they pulled up to First Meridian Bank, there was a small group of protesters outside, holding signs, "Justice for Kayla. Banking while black, not a crime." Kayla felt her stomach twist, but she didn't look away. Monica gave her hand a squeeze. "You ready?" Kayla swallowed hard. "No, but I'm going anyway." Monica smiled, proud and sad all at once. "That's my girl." They stepped out together, cameras clicking immediately, reporters calling Monica's name. She ignored them all, her entire focus on Kayla. The bank's new manager, installed just that morning, was waiting at the door. He looked pale and sweaty, tugging at his tie. When Monica approached, he stammered an apology, so rehearsed it sounded robotic. She raised a hand, silencing him without a word. Then she turned to Kayla. "You're the customer," she said softly. "You tell him what you need." Kayla's mouth was dry. She clutched the folder so tightly her fingers ached. Then she looked up at the manager, voice cracking but clear. "I'd like to open a checking account." He swallowed and nodded quickly. "Of course." Right away, they walked in together. The bank was painfully silent. Employees froze at their stations. Customers turned to watch. Kayla felt the stares prick her skin like needles. But she didn't shrink. She kept her head high. She walked to the counter, set down her folder, and handed it over. The teller this time was a young black woman who looked at Kayla with shining eyes and mouthed, "I'm sorry," before taking the papers with shaking hands. Kayla nodded once, accepting the apology she couldn't speak. Monica stood behind her, one hand on her shoulder, solid and reassuring. The process took 10 minutes. 10 minutes for something that had turned into a nightmare yesterday. When the teller finished, she handed Kayla her new account documents. Kayla took them with steady hands, her heart pounding. She turned to her mother, tears welling. Monica smiled and kissed her forehead. "You did it," she whispered. Kayla let out a shuddering breath. "We did." They left the bank slowly, deliberately. Cameras flashed. Questions flew. Monica ignored them all until they reached the sidewalk. Then she stopped, turning to face the crowd. She held Kayla close and spoke, voice clear and cutting. "My daughter deserved better. Every child deserves better. This ends now." Kayla stood beside her mother, spine straight, chin lifted, letting the world see her. Not a suspect, not a criminal, just a kid, just a human being. The cameras captured it all. And for the first time, Kayla let them. She wanted them to see. The end. If you appreciated this story and its message, I'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you thought about the plot. Did the ending resonate with you? Was there a moment that stood out most? Where are you watching from today? Share it in the comments below. I'm always curious to see how far these stories travel. And if you want more stories like this, ones that don't shy away from hard truths, but also remind us of our power to change things, consider subscribing. Your support helps bring these important conversations to more people. Let's keep talking, keep listening, and keep pushing for the kind of world Kayla and every kid deserves.